Hi guys, welcome to Off the Path Learning. My name is Lissa. Thank you so much for being with me today. In this video, I want to talk about the ostrich fern. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of research on this plant, and so there's a lot of confusing information about potential toxicity. And so we'll go over all the information that I've learned during my research so that we can go out there and confidently forage this delicious edible.
Going downtown for to buy me a sack of flour. Going to cook it every hour. Keep my skillet good and greasy all the time. Keep my skillet good and greasy all the time. Chickens in my sack, bloodhounds on my track. I'm pulling for my shanty home. I'm pulling for my shanty home. If they beat me to the door, I'll put 'em under the floor. Keep my skillet good and greasy all the time. Keep my skillet good and greasy all the time. I was walking down the street and I stole a ham of meat. Got my skillet good and greasy all the time. Got my skillet good and greasy all the time. I was going to the hills for to buy me a jug of brandy. Going to give it all to Mandy. Keep her good and drunk and greasy all the time. Keep her good and drunk and greasy all the time. Honey, if you say so, I'll never work no more. I'll lay round your shanty all the time. I'll lay round your shanty all the time. Said the man on the log, finger on the trigger and eye on the hog. Gun it went blip and the bullet it went zip. Fell on the hog with all of his grip. Got my skillet good and greasy all the time. Got my skillet good and greasy all the time.
So last year was the first time I interacted with fiddleheads here on our property. We had just gone through a storm and we lost power for 4 days, which was the most amount of time that we had gone without power. And I took the opportunity to go out into the woods and forage more of our food and cook in a simpler method. And it's like that I found the ostrich ferns on our property. And so I was really happy. And so I'm back this year in the same spot to forage fiddleheads. And I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the ostrich fern. Alright, so another thing I'm quite happy about is I've just discovered ostrich fern. Ostrich fern is another plant I've been looking for a long time now, because fiddleheads grow in the early spring, and you see everyone posting pictures of like the fiddleheads that they're cooking. It's something that my mother used to cook when I was a kid. We would go in this like little forest, this little tiny undeveloped part of town. It was in the back of a Zeller's, and she would forage fiddleheads and made them. But the thing is, I mean, you see a lot of fiddleheads in the spring, but really there's only one specific type of fern that is edible like that. That is the fiddlehead, and it's easily identifiable. And but like hard to find, I suppose. I see tons of ferns growing all the time, but had never really found fiddleheads definitively. and I definitely found them now. They're very striking. So here you go. We're in a patch now. Shadow's walking all along them. There's some right here, and the main one is right here. Very striking. I can see why they call them ostrich ferns. And the key identifying characteristic of this, Shadow just trampled all of them. Good job, Shadow. All right, so I guess I could just pick one and show you. Shadow, leave it. Is the, hey, you're a bad dog. Leave it. Go do something else. Boom, the U. So this deep groove in the stem, in this U, is very characteristic. You'll see a lot of ferns that look similar to this, especially when they're growing, when they're furled, but they won't have that U. They'll just be like in a filled out U shape, whereas this is a hollow U. So there you go, ostrich fern. I gotta remember this spot. This is, the big lake is right in the back. There's that area that's been kind of like closed off from the beaver dam, from all the work that the beaver did. More beautiful ostrich ferns in the back there. This is the area I want to plant the weeping willow, and then it opens up to like more of a little river system back there, and then over there is where I want to build the cottage. So remember this spot, ostrich ferns. There's probably a couple I could pick to cook, like I see right here. These ones are still unfurled. This one would be still pretty good. Look at that. All these little ones. And I saw recently, while I was doing my research, that like the Fibonacci sequence appears everywhere in nature, and this might be interesting. I really regret not bringing something to carry. Like if I had my basket and I could dump a bunch of fiddleheads in there. I wanted Cleaver's tea too, but I didn't bring my basket. I feel so silly because I'm really enjoying foraging now and I have nothing to put it in. So yeah, next time remember that. Looks like there's also maybe raspberries growing here, which is cool. Come collect raspberries. So much stuff to identify, but yeah, nature is finally, I think I'm connecting with it a little bit better now. I'm finding stuff. So there's not a lot of research on the ostrich fern, and so unfortunately that means that a lot of people are quick to judge it. A lot of toxicity reports are attributed to the ostrich fern, but most likely incorrectly. Most likely the fern that was consumed in the poisoning was not the ostrich fern. There's a lot of misidentification. People assume that you can eat any fiddlehead when the fern is at this stage still furled, and that's not true. There's really only the ostrich fern that is edible. There are other ferns that are technically edible, but they're not really good to eat. They're not palatable. And other ferns are not edible at all. They're toxic and have carcinogenic properties. There's also a misconception that these are toxic if ingested raw. Now again, that's because of the lack of information we have on fiddleheads, but there's a lot of famous foragers like Samuel Thayer that consume these ostrich ferns raw with no issue. Now, if you're going to eat it raw, keep your quantity to a small amount. Wow, that's really good. I'm really pleasantly surprised by that taste. And you can hear that crunch, I'm sure. That's really good. I can't believe I've never done that before. Now, there's a misconception that the top furled part is the only part you want to consume, but that's incorrect. All of this stem is edible, and some people actually say that it's tastier and has a better texture than this top part, but everything can be consumed. The plant is commercially harvested and it's been growing in popularity. And so in 2005, the Quebec government officially listed the ostrich fern as a vulnerable plant. So you want to be mindful of that when you're harvesting. If you stumble upon a patch that looks to have been picked by someone else, then probably best to move on to give the plant a chance to recuperate. When you're harvesting from a rosette, you'll see that typically it has about 5 to 7 ferns coming out of there. You want to take only about 50% to a third of that rosette. If you take all of the ferns coming out of the one rosette, you will be killing the plant. The ostrich fern is a native plant and it grows 2 different kinds of fronds, the leafy part of the fern. So there's the typical green part that we're used to harvesting for fiddleheads. Now that is the infertile part of the plant. It also produces a smaller brown fertile frond that comes out in the center of the cluster, and its purpose is solely to produce spores. It persists over winter through to the next spring, and that's when it releases its spores. They also make pretty good tinder for the fire. There's also 2 distinct surface textures on the infertile fronds, the green ones. So some of them will be this really bright green with a smooth texture, and then others will have this really thin dusting on them of this like whitish powder. It's definitely not going to look like hairs, it's not going to be fuzzy, and it's always going to have that deeply grooved U that will help you identify it confidently as the ostrich fern. But once you know what to look for, there's no reason to make a mistake. You'll be able to identify them properly every time. You will find them in rich woods, in areas that are prone to flooding, near streams, ponds, rivers, in ditches. Most claim that the ostrich fern should not be eaten raw and it should be consumed only after thorough cooking. The Canadian government itself suggests cooking the ostrich fern for 15 minutes prior to consumption. If you're going to eat large amounts of the ostrich fern, then it probably is best to cook them first. Now there's a few ways that you can do that. In the book Forêt, Gérard Legal mentions that he's been trying out a new method of eating the fiddleheads that has been going really good for him. He recommends putting the fiddleheads in a bowl of water for 24 hours, leaving them in the fridge. That will remove some of the tannins. You'll notice that the water comes out like a light brown color. And then cooking them for only 3 minutes in boiling water. You can also just cook them twice for 3 minutes each time, making sure you're using fresh water for that second boil. Pouring cold water over them after you're done to make sure you're stopping the cooking. And then from there you can eat them like that, or you can saute them, a little bit of butter, salt, pepper, some garlic. If you're interested in preserving them to consume at a later time, because the season for these things is really short, if you've harvested a bunch and you want to preserve them, they're really well preserved. You can blanch them and then go ahead and freeze them or can them or pickle them. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you're motivated to get out there and find the ostrich fern. So I'm sitting here in this ostrich fern kingdom with my dog and the black flies and everything else that's around us. And yesterday I made a video about how I was finding it difficult to feel connected to the forest. And when I said that, I meant like lately, you know, lately. I'm not sure when I stopped the video there, but just put here. I'm sure the camera can catch me there. Yeah, so I've been saying that I've been finding it difficult to be connected to nature. I think the problem is that, as you could see, there is so much happening right now in the forest. It went from being nothing except for the trees to just an explosion of things. And as a person that loves foraging and loves nature and wants to identify everything I see, it's really overwhelming to have so many things come out all at once, you know? And so I think you kind of shut off. You don't want to deal with it. And this is just like everything else in life, right? The forest, nature, always teaches you about life. And so, yeah, feeling overwhelmed, you know, but if you just focus, and that's an idea that it was in my mind, that there's no way, and it's not a new idea, I've heard this before. There's no way you can learn anything if you're focusing on all the plants like that. You really need to focus on one plant, go in on it, learn as much as you can about it, and then when you feel that you're ready, you move on to the next plant. But it's easy to forget that, especially when there's so many things growing and everything is talking to you and you want to get to know them all. You cannot. You really need to just focus on one thing. And so it's beautiful how I was focusing on the trillium a lot. Why? I could go on about my personal reasons why I was focusing on the trillium, but it brought me to the ostrich ferns, and it brought me to this moment now where yesterday I was upset that Shadow was trampling the ostrich ferns, and today I realize what a great sidekick she is. She's out here in the bugs. She doesn't have a mosquito net. She is toughing through this. She just found her frisbee, which is amazing. I told her to go get her frisbee. Look at her. Champion. I also just passed, while we were sitting here, 2 geese, which I know are the security guards for the lake. I've come into close contact with them. I've actually passed them while in the lake. They came overhead, went back, gave a gentle call to everybody else, because I think the first time I had seen them, I wasn't with Shadow, so that is different, for the animals around here. Shadow is like a wolf, and a wolf is a predator. She's more like a badger, though. So yeah, just to say, things change really fast. Yesterday I was kind of upset, feeling disconnected, and today, look at me, super connected. And I have the power outage to thank for that. So we got a big storm on Friday, and we haven't had power for 3 days. And no power for us means no water, so it's a big deal, but we like this kind of stuff. It's kind of like camping, so we're fine. But it does force you to look at things differently and connect in different ways. So I always like connecting with nature. I don't know if the camera picked that up, but the thumping of the perdrix, it's quite incredible. Feels like it's internal, but it's really just a bird flapping its wings. It's the ruffed grouse. I don't think you have a big impact like that, Shadow. So yeah. It's great. Really thankful. Thank you.